Okay, good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, holding a Chumash, holding the portion of Noach, we're holding on chapter 7, the book of Genesis, chapter 7, verse number 17. The flood was for 40 days, it's on the land. And the water increased, and it lifted the teva, and it lifted it above the earth. Rashi says it was submerged. The teva itself was submerged 11 cubits. Yud Aleph Amos, it was submerged in the deep of the water, like a laden ship, partially submerged in the water. Subsequent verses prove that this was a depth in which the ark was submerged in the water itself. Rashi will explain later. And the rain increased. It's important that Rashi is later to know how much the water went down every single day and how much ultimately the water went down over time. The water surged upon the earth and it increased greatly upon the earth. And the teva drifted upon the surface of the water, above them. And the water surged exceedingly high upon the earth, and it covered over all the mountains, the big mountains. What's under the sky. Here we go. Where the Torah tells us it went above the highest mountain. It went above it, 15 amas. The question how big an am is, let's say like 20, 25 feet. It covered over the mountains. Rashi says 15 cubits higher, meaning higher than the peaks of all mountains, after the water had reached a level of all mountain peaks. So if one 15 amas, so now you already have it, Getty. The ark was 11 amas in the water. That means it was 4 amas above the highest mountain. This is where these numbers are going to come into count. 15 amas above the highest mountain, 11 amas in. So that means that between the top of the mountain and the ark was 4 amas. So 4 amas could be either between 4 feet and 8 feet. And all flesh that moved upon the earth expired. They all died. Whether it was included birds, domestic animals, everything that's walking, everything that was walking on the earth, everything died. Every being on the dry land that has a breath of life, anything that was on the land, Mesu, they all died. She says, Nishma Zuruz Chaim, the breath of a spirit, Elisha, Charavu, Lake Dogin Shabayam. So here we know that the fish did not die. So the fish survived. And all the Abish obliterated, destroyed every being that was on the face of the earth. From man to animal, anything that was crawling, to those that were flying in the heavens, and they were totally destroyed from the land. The only things that survived was Noach and anything that was within the teva. Rashi, this is a grammar. Rashi says, Yamach is a simple active form and a passive form. Ach Noach, but Noach, this is a straightforward meaning, but Noach. But according to the Gada, he was groaning and spitting blood for the efforts taking care of the animals. Not an easy thing. Take care of the zoo, because Basha worked hard 24/7. Some sages say once he delayed bringing food to the lion and it bit him. About him, it says, even the righteous man paid on the earth for his sins. So Noach didn't have a contradicting thing. One says Noach was like an Eden in Teva. But the Medrash says that Noach didn't have an easy time in the Teva. He had to just feed all the animals, and every animal eats at a different time. And every animal was, the animals were not too nice to him. The waters surged on the earth 150 more days after the rain stopped. So we're holding 190 days. This goes all into the calculation why the Torah says later, or goes to the calculation how long did it take for the water to go down. So right now we're holding 190 days. 40 days for the rain and 150 days. And the Eibush remembered Noach. And he remembered all the animal, the wildlife, and all the animal, domestic Amashita Bateva that's with him in the ark. The Eibush put a spirit over the land, and the waters started to subside. Rashi says, Elikim, the divine name Elikim, is the attribute of justice. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the attribute of Chesed. Elikim is Midas Din. But it was transformed to the attribute of mercy. Yisk-Elikim. It was transformed to the attribute of mercy through the prayers of the righteous. Conversely, the evil deeds of the wicked transform the attribute of mercy to the attribute of mercy to the attribute of justice. As it says, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Vayad Elikim. Yirah Baras Adam, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Midas Chesed. This easy Rashi, he saw how great man's wickedness, and God said, Vayem Elikim. So God said, I'll dissolve. So he took Midas Chesed and turned it into Midas Gevura. So sometimes the Eibush takes Chesed, turns it into Gevura. Sometimes through Tshuva, he takes Midas Chesed, Midas Gevura, and turns it into Chesed. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the divine represents the attribute of mercy. Yisk-Elikim es Noach. And God remembered Noach. What did he recall for the animals? Yisk-Elikim es Malabemus. Merit that they did not pervert their nature before the flood. That they did not mate in the ark. That's number two. That they did not mate in the ark itself. God caused the spirit to apply, a spirit of comfort and relief emanated before him. Aloretz, on the earth, concerning the fears of the earth. Vayishoku, what means Vayishoku? That's like we say in the Megillah, Chamas HaMelech Shechacha. That is, the kind of anger abated. Megillah says, Chamas HaMelech Keshchei Chamas HaMelech. That the anger of Achashverosh calmed down, noting the calming of fury. Verse number 2, the well springs of the abyss, the floodgates of the heavens were closed. The rain and the heavens was held back. Ash says when it opened, it says all the well springs. But here it says it's written, the word all is not written, because the well springs from which the world had use remained open. And these are the hot springs that we have in the world, around the world, Tiberias. In Israel, the hot springs of Tiberias, if ever were hot springs, and these are the hot waters that came from the earth, beautiful healing waters. In the time of the flood, all of them opened and became from healing to extremely hot and killed people. But the Eibush closed most of them and kept some of the hot springs open. Would you find these hot springs around the world? Ikalu, Rashi says he held back. Like the word sichla means over here that he holds back. Verse number 3, and at the end of 150 days, the water started to steadily receding from upon the earth. Say the water diminished so that it went down. That on the next verse, At the end of the 150 days, the water began to recede. And this was the first day of Sivan. So we're holding now, the flood started on the 17th of Mar Cheshvan. We're holding now on the first day of Sivan. How is this calculated? The rain stopped on the 27th day of Kislev, so it was 40 days, leaving 3 days of Kislev and 29 days of Tevis. Together is 32 days. Shvat, Adar, Nisan, and Ir were together 180 days. So the first day of Sivan is the 150 days that the pasuk is talking about. Atana Chateva, and now the pasuk says the Teva rested. So now we're holding B'Chodesh Hashvi. Question: what does it mean? The 7th month. Yeshiva Asa Yom LaChodesh, on the 17th day of that month, it rested Al Har Yarot, on the mountain of Arat. Some say this mountain is in Turkey. Rashi says, B'Chodesh Hashvi, the 7th month over here means the month of Sivan. Ushvi LeKislev. That's the 7th month to the month of Kislev. Teves, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, Ir, Sivan. And Kislev, Teves, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, Ir, Sivan is the 7th month. Shapaskar Kshaman, that the rain stopped. Shiva Asa Yom, on the 17th day. From here we can deduce that the ark submerged in the water to the depths of 11 cubits. Here with the whole calculation. But it's written in the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the Mount Peak became visible. And this is Av. If we go with Sivan, so now we go to the month of Av. And the Mount Peaks are visible. And this was Av, which is the 10th month, counting from Mar Cheshvan, we're counting from the time of the rainfall. The water had been 15 cubits higher than the highest mountain, and it decreased 15 cubits in 60 days, from the 1st of Sivan to the 1st of Av, being 1 cubit every 4 days. So now you can figure out mathematically. Thus, on the 16th of Sivan, which is the 17th day, the water had only decreased 4 cubits. And the following day, the ark rested on Mount Arat. So that's how you figure out. It was 15 feet above the highest mountain. The ark itself was 11 feet in size, so it was 4 feet. So in the 60 days later, if every day, if it went down a foot, an am, I mean, every 4 days, so that's how you give it, 4, 8, 12, 4, 8, 16. So on the 17th day of Sivan, boom, the bottom of the ark hit the top of the mountain, and it rested on the mountain. Couldn't see the mountain yet because the ark was 11 feet into 11 amas in the water. That's why it took another 60 days for they actually see the top of the mountain of Arat. And that's how you figure this whole thing out. You can deduce that the ark was submerged 11 cubits in the water above the mountain peak. And that's why it took all this time, because it took 4 days for each cubit for the water to go down. And then the water went and kept on going down until the 10th month, the month of Av, as Rashi said already. In the 10th month, on the 10th day, Niru Rashi Arim, on the month of Av, the top of the mountains were seen. Rashi says this is the month of Av, which is the 10th month. We're counting the 10th month to Mar Cheshvan. We're counting for the time it started to rain. And the rain began. That's how these are the 10th month. The 10th month in the calendar, in the Hebrew calendar, is not Av. So we're going according to the counting of the counting from the time the rain started. Should you, however, wish to say that it's fact Elul, and the 10th month from Kislev, when the rain stopped, just so you say that the 7th month means from Sivan, which is the 7th month when rain stops. The question is, you see the psukim are not so clear. Are we counting from the rain stop 40 days, after 40 days? Or are you counting from the rain started? You see the pasuk goes back and forth. It's not clear exactly. You have to go and make mathematical equations to come to say that one pasuk means from when the rain stopped, and one pasuk means from when the rain started. If you want to say that it means from when the rain stopped, does he say the 7 months means a Sivan, which is the 7th month of the rain stopped? My reply is it's impossible to say this. For you must admit that the 7th month can only be counted from the time the rain stopped, since 40 days of rainfall, the subsequent 150 days in which the rain swelled, did not terminate until the 1st of Sivan. And if you say it means the 7th month after the beginning of the rainfall, it would not be Sivan, but be a month earlier. 10th month, however, can only be reckoned from the rain began. For if you say the reckon from the time it stopped, it would mean also the month of Elul, which would not find that the first day of the first month the water had drained off the earth, because 40 days after the mountain peak became visible, Noach released the raven. That happened later, and he waited altogether another 21 days to proceed to sending out the dove, making altogether 60 days from the time the mountain peak became visible until the surface of the ground began to dry. And if you say it became visible in Elul, it would work out that it dried in Cheshvan 60 days after Elul, which cannot be, for the verse calls it the first month, which is only Tishrei, which is the first month reckoned from the creation of the world. So now she's forcing that when you look at the psukim, you got to take each pasuk. You got to comprehend the story. You got to comprehend the background to be able to figure out when it says the first month, what it means the first one. If it says the 7th month, it says the 10th month. All these need to be reckoned according to the capability of how this thing must work out. It took after 40 days that the mountain was seen. And Noach opened up the window, Teva, Asheras, which he made. When the mountain peak was visible, that's a chalein Teva. He provided additional light. This was not the entrance of the ark. This was the entrance of the ark. This was the window. And he sent out the raven. This raven circled the ark until the water dried upon the surface. He didn't want to go on this message, on this job. Yotzev, it flew in circles around the ark and did not go on its errand, because it suspected Noach concerning its mate. It's felt that maybe Noach wanted to take away his wife. As you learn this in the Agada, in the Agada's Chelek, the Medrash. Ad Yavesh Hamayim. Straightforward meaning is that this phrase is what was plainly implies until the water flood dried. However, the Agada explains that, however, the Medrash is the raven was kept in the readiness for another errand. The time when rain was being withheld in the time of Elijah. So the raven didn't want to do its errand in the time of Noach. So the Eibishter held him that he'll one day do his shlichus, his message, his obligation. That will be when he brought food for Eliyahu Hanavi, who was hiding from the king, and this raven brought him food. And then he sent a dove to see if the water went down. He did this 7 days later. As it's written, he waited another 7 days, from which we infer that the prior first time he also waited 7 days. Yishlach, this word does not mean sending on an errand, but means releasing. He sent it off on its way, didn't ask him for anything. And thus you would see if the bird would come back, he knows that the bird has no place to rest. The bird doesn't come back, he knows the bird has a place to rest. And the water subside, for he would find a resting place and would not return. and the dove couldn't find a place to rest his feet. The kaf ragla. And he came back to the ark. The raven came back. I mean, the dove came back. Because there was still water on the face of the earth. So Noah took his hand. He brought him back in. Waited another 7 days. That's an Asher. Another 7 days. That means the first was also 7 days. He sent again the Yena. He sent the dove out of the ark. The Yena came back to him in the evening. And behold, he had an olive leaf in its beak. And Noach knew he knew that the water has subsided from it. Now says, in my opinion, it was a male bird, and therefore the verse sometimes refers to as a masculine, tarif, and sometimes feminine, befiha. Whatever the dove, a species mentioned in the Torah, referred to as a feminine. His eyes are like the dove in the pools of water. The chetes is feminine, milk, like dove of a valley. All of them moaning, is all feminine. So we see that the Torah, for some reason, when it comes to dove, uses the masculine and the feminine. Taruf, now she says, taruf is a concept of chataf. It was plucked. But the Agada explains means food. According to the sages, in Befia in its mouth is an expression of speech. It says, "Let my food be bitter, like an olive, but from the hands of the Holy One, blessed be He, rather than as sweet as honey from the hands of a human being." And that was the message from the Yaina. He said, "I had enough of the food of a human being that was fed by Noach. I'm happy to be able to go eat on my own food." Verse number 12. And Noach waited another 7 days. And he sent out this bird again. And never came back. Verse number 13. Was in the 601st year of Noach. Barishan b'chodesh, Barishan b'echad lachodesh. It was in the first month. Machlekes again. It was at Nisan or Tishrei. Chorva hamayim al haaretz. The water drained out of the earth. Yasa Noach is Messiah Teva, and Noach opened up the covering of the ark. And he saw that the surface dries. Now she says, "Barishan la'ablezu Tishrei." According to Rabelez, it's Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua Nisan, it was the month of Nisan. Harvu, earth became like clay because the upper surface had hardened. V'chodesh hasheni, yeshiva ve'esni yom lachodesh. The second month of Cheshvan, back an entire year, on the 27th day. So now we're holding a year. The flood started on the 17th day. The rain started on the 7th day of Cheshvan, and the earth was totally dry on the 27th day of Cheshvan the following year. Yof Sharetz. Actually, the rain began to fall on the 7th day of the second month. And since the sentence of generation of flood was a full year, solar year, these additional days are 11 days, which is solar year exceeds the lunar year. That's what you have. That's why it was, even though in the Hebrew calendar, from the 17th of Cheshvan to the 17th of Cheshvan is missing 11 days. The lunar calendar is 365 days. Therefore, since they were punished on the lunar calendar, but on the sun calendar, so therefore it needed to be a 365 day. It needed to be 11 days longer, and that's why the flood ended not on the 17th day of Cheshvan, which would be a complete year, but it ended on the 27th day of Cheshvan, 11 days later. Yasha Eretz Nasagir Kilchasa, it hardened its normal. That completes Tanya, the Chumash of today. Now we go to Tanya today. We continue, I believe today continues 25th letter of the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe explains that Malchus, the attribute of Malchus of the world of Atzilus, is the Devar Hashem, is the energy of God that comes into the world, which is the concept of the Shekhinah, which is the concept of Eimad Imet Tata, the lower mother, all these names, Matanissa, the queen, all these things that are names of Malchus, different aspects of what Malchus of Atzilus, Malchus of all Malchus of every world accomplishes. Even though we say Shem Echad in Adav, we say Shem Echad, the Eibush is one, Ushmai Echad, his name is one. The Haile Dibur of Ruach Piv, meaning that though his speech and the breath of his mouth, which is sacred Zoyar, Shem Shmoi, which that's the concept of a name. The concept of Ruach Piv, the spirit of a mouth, the Dibur, all these could be called the concept of a name. A name is for somebody else, just like the speech is for somebody else. And a ruach of his mouth, his hevel, is all about somebody else. So that's the way he's Hashem Echad, the Eibush is one, Ushmai Echad, and his name is one, meaning that by him, the Pnimis, there's no concept by him, Pnimis, Chatzonis, inner, outer, they're all one, because they all come from him. Everything comes from him. So there's no concept by him, physical, spiritual, above spirituality, infinity, finite. It's all within him. So it's all one. Hu Yachad and Meyuchad. He's singular. By God, everything is one and unique. Because by the Eibush, that God forbid, is there a concept of domains and levels and upper and lower? Those kind of concept by God. By God, it's all one entity. Afap became, Eibush is talking to humanity. And therefore, humanity, that the radiance, the flux, the life force, which is forth, that comes into the world, so that is divided. The way it reveals itself to the world, the way humanity, the way the physical world receives it receives it in different kinds of categories. It comes in a lavush. That's some concept that comes into a garment. Which are the four worlds. Atzilus, the world of emanation, Riya, the world of creation, Yetzirah, the world of formation, Asiya, the world of... by the Eibush, there's no concept. By God, everything is one. Everything is a created entity, whether it's Atzilus or a rock in this world. It's all a concept of a creation. But ultimately, the way this world shines to us, the way this world, ultimately, the way we receive godliness in this world, the way a human being or the world itself receives its revelation, it depends where it receives its revelation from. Does it receive its revelation from Atzilus? Does it receive its energy from the world of Bria? Does it receive its energy from the world of Yetzirah? Does it receive its energy from the world of Asir? And the difference is because the contractions and screening. What is revealed? How much is revealed? How much is capable to reveal? How much is the vessel of the world capable of receiving? Something is that obscures this light, the life force. So it shouldn't shine. It shouldn't shine so much in the world of creation like it shines in the world of Atzilus. So there's not such a great revelation in the world of creation as in the world of formation. And there's surely not such a and then into the world of formation, it's even less revelation than the world of creation. But that's why there's a great contraction between the world of creation and the world of formation. With Sachem Yosef, there's even more greater boundaries and screenings, etc. Why? Because the world, we want to give a world to be able to handle its revelation. Abishter wanted that the world of a Yitzhira should be able to handle a lower dimension of energy. But you cannot say this. You can't say this about the Shechina, the presence of God. The Abishter is no Atzilas, Bri, Yitzhira, Asir, they're all the same. They're all the same concept. She devara vayiv, which is the word of God. So that's why the word of God. That's why you learn Torah is compared to water, because Torah comes down from the highest to the lowest, because it's the word of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. The word of God. There's no tzimtzum. There's no contraction. There's nothing hidden in the word of God. And it's also regarding the radiance, the flux of life force issue from the word of God. In Ha'ara Shabbat Tzilus, and the radiance which is in the word of Tzilus, by Kasa Mochos, it breaks the boundary and it reveals, and it comes down to world of Bria. You can't withhold from the energy of the world, the light of the God that's in Atzilus from the world of Bria. It doesn't work that way. So it's there. That's without the explain. Everything is there. The Eibush is standing right here in this world. I might not see it, but by God, God is in this world like He's in the upper worlds. To say anything else would put limitation to God. You can't do that. God is right here, because by God there's no tzimtzum. By the Eibush, and even to the Shechina, there's no tzimtzum. There's no tzimtzum. That's why it's called Shechin. Eibush comes wherever we are. Shechina Golimim. Wherever a Jew is, wherever a human being is, God is there. God cannot hide from Himself. So too from Bria to Yitzhira and Yitzhira doesn't make a difference. The light of God is in the world as it is in the upper worlds. And therefore, if you understand this, the infinite light that we learn, that's in the world of Atzilus, the highest world, Gambasir is right over here. This infinite light is right over here. Maybe thank God you cannot see it, because you'll be bottled. You'll be totally nullified. So thank God you cannot see it, but it's right over here. And it's standing right over here, like it's in the most highest sublime world that you're talking about, that you can imagine. Is in the world of action, and in this physical world, and in this very material world, and any name you want to give to the world. The Eibush, the God, the infinite light of God is right here. The Eshlapshus, but ultimately comes in this world. The Malchus the Bri, Yitzhira, see it through Malchus the Bri, Yitzhira, see it comes in this world, this Eid and Seif. As this is all explained, the teachings of the Arizal are blessed. Teachings of Chassidus, teachings of Kabbalah. We're actually having a class in Kabbalah, Ezat Hashem, a couple of weeks, the beautiful JLI class on Kabbalah. Today is the 29th day of the month, which is chapter 140 to chapter 144. That's number one. Rebbe writes in the Yom Yom, we do recite the bracha on seeing a rainbow. Tell you at the end of this week's parsha, talks about the rainbow. We do not follow those authorities who are hesitant in this matter. Some people say that a rainbow shows on a negative thing. A rainbow shows that God remembers the world, He's not going to destroy the world. So why would you make a bracha on that God remembers not to destroy the world? That means God really wants to destroy the world, chas v'shalom, and He remembers not to destroy the world. But that's not a minhag Chabad. Minhag Chabad is when we see a rainbow, it has to be a full rainbow, it means a entire rainbow that you see over, and you make a bracha. Zech Rabris, beautiful bracha. A resident of Mezhebush had a quarrel with somebody else. once while in the Baal Shem Tov shul, he shouted that he would tear the fellow to pieces like a fish. Baal Shem Tov, shocked that the guy didn't, Baal Shem Tov was sitting there. Baal Shem Tov told his pupils to hold one another's hands and to stand near him with their eyes closed. Then he placed his holy hands upon their shoulders. And the two disciples next to him, he put his hand on two disciples, the two chassidim next to him, and they were all holding hands. Suddenly, the disciples began to shout in great terror at seeing the fellow actually dismembering his dispute. They actually saw him tearing him apart. Shem Tov didn't want to do this to frighten them. This incident showed clearly that every potential has an effect, either in the physical or the spiritual plane. But when this chassid told another guy that I'm going to tear you apart, self-considered wouldn't mean that he's going to tear him apart physically. The Baal Shem Tov wanted to show the second he said it, that he did tear him apart. In the spiritual realm, he tore him apart. And that can be received, but the problem is you don't see it. That's the problem. But on either in a physical form or in a spiritual plane, that can be received only with higher and more refined senses. Hashem wanted to show this that if we had more refined senses, that we would be careful what we say, because this chassid said something to his friend. He was angry, and he said, "I'm going to tear you apart." In a spiritual sense, he did do that. And if he would have a more spiritual sense in his life, he would actually see that his words have ramifications of what he says. That ends the Tanya. That ends the Yom Yom for today. Midshem tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. Next 2 days are Rosh Chodesh, 30th and the first day. So we're going to do the Chitas at 8:15 tomorrow. On Wednesday and Thursday, we'll do it at 8:15. I want to wish you a wonderful day. Midshem will see you tomorrow at 8:15. We'll continue to learn the Chitas of the day.
I have a question.